I guess once they kick off, that's it, right?
This is Team 3's Case Study 2 discussion, and I'm Stephanie Nodelman from Langtree Charter.
I'm Shabazi Baird, representing Quality Education Academy.
And I'm Nancy Herrera from Lincoln Christian School.
Excellent. So our case study presented several questions. So our first question that we will answer in a roundtable: what guidelines could Donna have provided for the teachers prior to the grade level?
All right, and when I was looking through what she did, I kind of felt that she already knew what she liked or what she wanted to see, because she seemed pretty organized about sending in benchmarking. But she could have given people guidelines about how she wanted the period to go, whether it was them talking to each other or giving feedback back and forth after, or who she wanted them to go see. So I kind of feel if she gave every grade level guidelines, they could have all developed a plan that she agreed with at the beginning.
I agree. I said when she met with her team to develop the plan, she could have used all of that collective information and would have sent a survey out to teachers to see what was the best option. However, she would have had to present it with the option to have buy-in, but the buy-in had to be based on research and presented to everyone in the form of, for lack of a better term, anonymous group correction. So, making sure that they had some implementation.
Yeah.
Right. I also agree that through the process, it's almost like it was just open-ended, but yet then when she came back to interview the other, what was it? I think it was a third grade team. They were pretty basic in their decisions, and it seemed like she was a little upset with that and wanted more, but she should have given them some basic guidelines to begin with and given them a little more direction, but then gave them some leeway or freedom. So presenting them with certain questions that they needed, or topics, or ways to observe or teach them how to observe. First of all, even though they're veteran teachers, some of them, not all of them, it was just almost like, here, this is what we're going to do this year. We're going to try it. She did have the backup of the superintendents, which I liked. Good ideas, but I do think she needed to give them a little more background information.
Yeah, and I mean, she set up with the leaders of well-respected teachers in the school and tried to get them involved, but then she left it so open-ended that every team came up with a different plan. And I mean, that's fine if you want them to do that, but she could have had every team come back to that meeting and share out their ideas and then decide on one that all the teams had to follow, or have them vote to get them all to follow the same one.
Yes, I would agree with the different plans. However, there needed to be, specifics, like what are you looking for? What does it look like? Who's going to be in charge of what? Who's going to manage the error that may happen? So that is great. Does anyone have any final thoughts as we conclude question 1?
Yeah, I think that taking all the ideas first and then having them kind of vote on the best one, or which they thought was the best one, or find the best parts of each of them and put them together instead of just letting them, do their own thing. But go ahead.
All right. So question number 2, how could the teacher's finals plans be effective for the instructional process?
All right. Well, I kind of felt that with their final plans, you just like a student or a lesson, you have to be reflective on it. So she could have the teams meet after this process, because she wanted to change the process on having the super formal observations from the district. So she could have the teams come back and see if they liked the plan and how it went with their teams, and then had the teams come back to another team lead meeting where they're discuss if that's something how they want to do it from the future, or do they want to change it after some teacher feedback on if they actually felt this is worthwhile in their instructional process.
I said feedback and implementation from the teacher leaders who will act as the coaches because they will be leading the project, which will give the teachers an opportunity to lead. So that's putting them in a leadership role within the school. So Ms. Donna doesn't have to do anything. Ms. Harrington doesn't have to do as much because she has the people there for her, which will in turn lead to opportunities for professional development once the teacher leaders actually see what is the need based on the plans that were submitted.
Right, I also agree with all that, but also with them learning from each other, not just from the leads. That would give them the opportunity to grow with their instructional strategies and opportunities like that. But that's what I thought about this one question, that just the various techniques that they're going to learn from the veterans, and even new people have great ideas when they're coming in straight from college and how they're trained. But it is beneficial, I think, for them to all learn from each other in the process.
Yeah, that's a great point, Nancy, because it's about how they're observing each other and if they're actually able to bring anything back from what they saw in each other's classrooms.
I wanted to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just piggybacking and saying that collaborative effort was demonstrated through several teams, but the team that were hesitant and apprehensive to change, they felt like they had it in the bag, like they didn't need any type of correction. So.
Right, and I thought through this process that this is probably a strange idea, but take them and divide them, since they are in like 3 groups, and have the best one to actually use their plan against, or not against, but with the other people, like switch it up. Like they're not using their plan on themselves. They created that plan, but they're not going to use that plan on themselves. So I thought that would be a good way of changing things up as well.
Yeah, that could be a good idea. Or even when going into the meeting, if their grade's still struggling, you say, okay, these grade levels plan this and these grade levels plan this. Which of these plans do you like best, and go with it? Mm-hmm. Instead of allowing them to like argue and try to get out of trying to get something from the experience.
Does anyone have any final thoughts as we conclude question 2? Okay, moving right along to question 3. How would the principal be able to evaluate whether the new observation format was working successfully for the students?
Well, I kind of felt that the admin team or the principal would know by going into these teachers' classrooms and watching them teach and seeing if they started implementing strategies they saw in their fellow classmates' classrooms. Because if they're able to implement new strategies or do the best from what they saw, you'd be able to notice that, and it would in turn help the students' success rates in the classroom with test scores, even just lessons and understanding.
So one of the authors that, of course, they always mention is Linda Darling Hammond and her expectations for professional development. And she said the ultimate goal is student learning. So student teaching and learning being effective. So one way was exposure, which she was successful in that with developing the team, but the implementation has to be conducted through those walkthroughs that she was going to see. So that formative assessment and the summative to see if the students was actually learning is if the student participation or the student engagement or the student scores ultimately increase their outcomes.
I agree. Also, kind of taking from the very first question, that leaving it so open-ended, the principal should have had, again, some guidelines, and also had to have had something in mind when preparing this process, or even working with the teachers of how she can gauge whether or not it's working or not. But I think by benchmark testing, using previous guidelines or testing data, but they have to have something to compare it to in the process to see if the students really are learning, or if this process or if the students, I mean, the teachers' instructional strategies are working better with the kids, whatever they're learning from each other or from other teams. So I think it was a lack of planning on her part, but she does have to have something to implement to begin with.
I agree with her starting at the team level and having that gradual implementation. I think if the other teachers would have saw that it is working, this new type of observation is working or evaluation, then they would have easily said, okay, well, I see that this is an opportunity for me to grow professionally and for my scholars to grow academically. So I believe that if she would have did the gradual implementation, they would have been better reflective practitioners.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any final thoughts for our
I do have
case?
a couple, well, maybe one or two things. I feel like through this process, I did more of talking about the bad side of it or the downside of it, but there were a lot of great key points, letting the teachers take ownership of their own observation, letting them take leadership over their professional development, working together, creating a plan that they could use. So those are all positives that we researched and learned in task one that I wanted to put in there as well, because I didn't want to feel like I was all negative about this.
Yeah, I kind of felt like I was pointing out more of the negatives in the answers, but in the second question, I did put that this can make the team even stronger for the teams that actually do it well and can collaborate and learn from each other and be able to just have a critical conversation with, this is what I saw in your classroom, like strengths and weaknesses, because that's what 3 of those teams said that they were going to share. So it's just being able to collaborate makes your team bond even more.
And that feedback, it being appreciative and constructive, will grant results. But as far as the teacher leadership and the decision making, I believe that it did shift from the teachers being solely evaluated to it is focused on student achievement.
Right.
Well, I don't have anything else to share.
All right. Well, thank you for participating in our case study too.
All right.
Thank you all.